Everly Stone walked into her childhood home where her family saw her as a failure who chose the army over ambition. But tomorrow, in a boardroom where her father and brother chase their dreams, she'll reveal she's the colonel holding their future in her hands. My name is Everly Stone. I'm 30 years old, a colonel in the United States Army. And tomorrow I'll be sitting across from my father and brother in a high-stakes defense contract meeting. Only they have no idea I'm the Pentagon liaison with final approval authority. 5 years ago, I left this house without looking back. I'd grown tired of being the disappointment, the daughter who threw away her future by choosing military service over business school. My father once told me the Army was for people without real options. That was the last meaningful conversation we had. Tonight, I'm back home for family dinner. My mother will talk about Ethan's promotion. My father will nod with pride. And someone will ask me if I'm still moving around a lot. I won't argue. I won't correct them because tomorrow when their boss calls me Colonel Stone in front of a room full of executives, the silence will speak for itself. Let them have tonight. Tomorrow everything changes. The driveway was narrower than I remembered. My old car used to fit here with room to spare. But now my rented black SUV seemed too sharp, too out of place beside my mother's aging minivan. I turned off the engine and sat in silence, letting the hum of the heater fade. My palms were dry now. Military calm, they'd call it. But my stomach still churned like it used to before deployment. The porch light was on, casting a warm yellow glow over the chipped welcome mat and faded front door. Nothing had changed. Not the cracked steps, not the brown hedges in desperate need of trimming, and certainly not the feeling that waited for me inside. That particular blend of being unseen and hyper-analyzed all at once. I rang the doorbell out of habit. "Everly," my mother called from the kitchen. She didn't come to the door. "It's open." Of course it was. I pushed it open and stepped inside. Same floral scent, same wall of framed photos. My brother's graduation, his wedding, his 2 boys. No pictures of me in uniform, not even the commissioning portrait I sent 5 years ago. "Dinner's almost ready," my mother said without looking up as I stepped into the kitchen. "Ethan and Abigail are on their way. Ethan just got another promotion. You'll never believe it." I smiled politely. "That's great, Mom. You'll have to congratulate him. He's leading the entire systems integration team now. Everyone at your father's company says he's going places. That phrase going places used to haunt me. It always sounded like a train I missed. Now it was just noise. The dining room table was set for 6. There was no name card, but the seating was implied. Ethan at the head, Dad on his right, Mom between them, and me somewhere that didn't matter. Ethan and Abigail arrived exactly on time as always. He wore the kind of blazer that says, "I'm important, but not trying too hard." And she brought a bottle of wine none of us would actually enjoy, but would all pretend to appreciate. "Hey, Ev," Ethan said as he hugged me briefly, already looking over my shoulder toward Dad. "Long time, 5 years," I replied. He blinked, clearly unsure if I was joking. I wasn't. We ate roast beef, mashed potatoes, and the same side salad Mom had made since I was 10. Ethan held court effortlessly, detailing corporate restructures, performance bonuses, and what his team was doing for the military arm of the company. My father looked like he might cry from pride. "And you?" Mom turned to me, her smile polite but empty. "Still traveling with the Army?" I took a sip of water. "More or less." "Still a captain?" Dad asked, eyes not leaving his fork. "Something like that." "Must be tough being in the field all the time?" Ethan added. "I mean, no long-term strategy, right?" "Just following orders." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My uniform was still folded carefully in the back of my suitcase upstairs, the silver eagle insignia catching light through fabric. Tomorrow they'd learn just how much strategy I was responsible for. For now, I let them talk. It would be the last time they spoke over me. I spent most of the evening in my old room, seated on the edge of a twin bed, covered in the same patchwork quilt my grandmother had sewn when I was 12. The walls were still lined with relics from a version of me they had once believed in. Basketball trophies, honor roll certificates, college acceptance letters, every accomplishment prior to the moment I joined ROTC. After that, I became a cautionary tale in this house. There were no framed articles about my cybersecurity awards, no photos from my deployments, no certificates marking my promotions to major, then lieutenant colonel. The most significant achievement of my life, a full colonel in the U.S. Army Cyber Command at 30, was completely invisible in this home. I remembered the day I told them about the ROTC scholarship. I had expected hesitation. I didn't expect disgust. My father had looked at me like I'd thrown myself away. "The military is for people who don't have real potential," he had said. "You were always meant for more." He'd meant his version of more, of course. An MBA, a corner office, and ideally a position under his wing at Northfield Technologies, the same defense firm he'd given his life to. It was always supposed to be Ethan. And when Ethan stepped into that mold effortlessly, the family narrative was complete. I wasn't the daughter who chose a different path. I was the daughter who wasted hers. Downstairs, I heard the echo of laughter, Dad's deep chuckle, Mom's soft, Ethan's booming confidence, the sound of a tribe gathered around a chosen successor. I'd grown used to it, but the irony was almost poetic now. Ethan had just been promoted to lead the systems integration team on the very military contract I now oversaw. He didn't know. None of them did. Tomorrow at 9 in the morning, I would walk into Northfield Technologies in full uniform, brief the executive board as Pentagon liaison for Project Vanguard, and evaluate the same technical strategy Ethan bragged about at dinner. Back in my room, I opened my suitcase and pulled out the uniform. Midnight blue, pressed to perfection, my ribbons and medals aligned precisely. The colonel insignia gleamed beneath the soft light. I checked for stray threads and polished the buttons with a cloth I always carried. My hands moved mechanically, ritual over emotion, because tomorrow wasn't about revenge. It was about precision, presence, and performance. It was about finally letting them see who I had become in a language they couldn't interrupt or belittle. The next morning, I arrived at Northfield Technologies 15 minutes ahead of schedule. The parking lot was already filling with staff and business attire, rushing through security checks with lanyards and briefcases. "No, Sadie, please. You're my sister. Lauren is miserable living with Mom and Dad. They fight all the time. The baby needs a stable home. Then get a job, Ethan. Get a real job with a steady paycheck and move out like everyone else." He started getting loud. "You make good money. You got that promotion. You could help us if you wanted to." People in the coffee shop were starting to stare. I stood up. "I'm leaving. Don't contact me again." "Sadie, wait." But I was already walking out. He didn't follow me. That night, I heard from Chloe again. She called to tell me what had happened after I left. "Ethan came home and told everyone you refused to help him. Your mom is furious. She's telling everyone you're heartless. What else is new?" "But Sadie, you should know. Things are getting really bad over there. Lauren and your mom had a huge fight yesterday. Lauren threw a plate at the wall and threatened to take the baby and leave. That sounds like their problem, not mine." "I know, but I thought you should know. Ethan looked really desperate when I saw him today." After we hung up, I felt a little bad. Not bad enough to give Ethan money, but bad enough to wonder if I was doing the right thing. Then I remembered all the years of watching him coast through life while I worked my ass off. No, I wasn't responsible for fixing Ethan's life. He was 30 years old with a wife and a baby. It was time for him to grow up. That was a year ago. After I refused to give Ethan money, he tried different things to make money fast. The cryptocurrency podcast lasted 6 weeks. Then he tried day trading with my parents' money and lost most of it. After that, multi-level marketing, selling protein shakes that lasted 2 months. Lauren is still doing Instagram, but she's not getting the success she expected. Having a baby makes it harder to create content consistently. She's constantly complaining that she doesn't have time to film or that the baby cries during videos. The fighting got so bad that my dad installed a lock on their bedroom door. Chloe told me Lauren threw a tantrum last month because my mom wouldn't babysit while she went to an influencer meetup. It's not my job to watch your kid. My mom said, "You live here for free. Figure it out." The irony wasn't lost on me. My mom, who demanded I pay rent for their empty apartment, was now dealing with 3 freeloaders in her house. They still can't rent out the apartment. After lowering the price multiple times, they found someone willing to pay $1,200 a month, but only furnished. Since I took all the furniture, my parents had to buy cheap stuff to make it rentable. They're barely breaking even. Meanwhile, my life has been great. The promotion came with responsibilities I actually enjoy. I'm working on interesting research projects, and my boss hinted at another promotion next year. I've been saving aggressively and looking at houses. With my new salary and savings, I should be able to put down a decent down payment by spring. Having my own house feels achievable now. I started dating someone too. James is an engineer. We met at a work conference, and he's been supportive about my family situation. He can't believe how they treated me. "You're the responsible one. Please extend full access and support. This project is critical to both national security and our future partnerships." As people began to file out, I felt eyes lingering. Not with curiosity anymore, but recognition. My credentials were no longer a mystery. I had earned my seat at the table, and they knew it. My father hovered in the hallway afterward, just outside the glass walls of the conference room. He looked like a man who'd walked into a room expecting applause and found a tribunal instead. "Everly," he said once we were alone, still searching for a tone of authority. "We need to talk." I nodded. "Your office?" He hesitated, then gestured down the hall. Inside, the air felt heavier. My mother was already there, seated stiffly in a visitor's chair. Ethan stood by the window, arms folded, jaw set. The 3 of them together, my childhood jury. I didn't sit. I stood at ease, hands clasped behind my back, calm, unapologetic. "You've been a colonel for how long?" my father asked finally. 6 months, I replied. 6 months, he repeated hollowly. "And you didn't tell us." "I did," I said quietly. "I sent invitations to my promotion ceremony, emails, articles. I left voicemails. None of you responded." He opened his mouth, but my mother interrupted. "We didn't know what it meant," she said. "Colonel, that sounds high, but we didn't understand." "Why didn't you explain?" "Because I stopped trying to justify my worth," I replied. Every time I called, the first question was about Ethan's projects or your quarterly numbers. You never asked about me unless it was to suggest I quit the army and come home. "We thought you were stuck," Ethan said, like moving base to base, never really going anywhere. I looked at him. "You said last night that people in the military just follow orders." You laughed while saying it. He shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't know you were doing this." "You never asked," I said again. My mother reached for her purse, then paused. "Everly, I don't know what to say. We should have been at your commissioning, your graduation, all of it. I thought you were pushing us away." "No," I said. "I just stopped hoping you'd show up." The silence that followed was thick, uncomfortable, but necessary. My father cleared his throat. "So, what do you want now?" "Public acknowledgement, an apology, a headline in the company newsletter?" I shook my head. "I want nothing but what I've always deserved. Respect for my work, for my decisions, for the fact that I didn't fail just because I didn't follow your blueprint." Ethan finally stepped away from the window. "You evaluated my presentation today, and you were fair," he said, quieter now. "You didn't humiliate me." "I wasn't there to," I replied. "I was doing my job." He nodded slowly. "It was impressive. Honestly, you were commanding." It might have been the first genuine compliment I'd ever heard from him. My father stood but didn't move closer. "You've built something we don't understand," he said. "That's on us. We thought we knew better." We didn't. For the first time, I saw hesitation in his voice. Not defeat, but a beginning. He extended his hand, not for show, but in a gesture I recognized from every military promotion I'd ever stood through. A quiet offering of respect. "Colonel Stone," he said, voice rough. "I owe you an apology. I underestimated you completely." I took his hand. Firm grip, no bitterness, just closure. "I accept." My mother blinked quickly, then stood. "We'd like to try again if you'll let us." "One step at a time," I said. And for the first time in years, I believed that might actually happen. 6 months later, my apartment in Washington, D.C. was quiet, but full. The open-plan living room overlooked the Potomac, a clean skyline beyond the windows. My bookshelf held medals tucked between cybersecurity textbooks and a few framed mission commendations. Not too much, just enough. That night, my family joined me for dinner. At my table on my ground, my father was the first to arrive carrying a framed article. "Figured you might want a copy," he said. It was a print feature from a defense journal covering the success of Project Vanguard. My photo was at the center. Me in full-dress uniform standing beside General Thompson and Margaret Cole. He handed it to me like it was fragile. "I've had this up in my office for a few months now." He added, eyes not quite meeting mine. "Thanks, Dad," I said. "It means something." My mother followed a few minutes later, holding a warm pie tin with both hands. "Apple," she said with an awkward smile. "Still your favorite, right?" "It is." She glanced around the apartment. So clean, so organized. "I don't know how you keep it like this." I almost replied with a joke. Military habit, but decided against it. She was trying. It didn't need commentary. Ethan and his wife came last, bringing an expensive bottle of wine and a strange kind of ease I didn't expect. After dinner, as the dishes clinked in the sink and conversation drifted toward quiet praise, Ethan pulled me aside. "I implemented the rollout structure you mentioned," he said. "The team didn't love it at first, but it works better than what we had." "Did you tell them where you got it?" He grinned sheepishly. Eventually, after I let them believe I was a genius for about 5 minutes, I smirked. "As long as it's working," he nodded. "It is. And so are you. I mean, you've really got it together. I don't think I ever said that." "No, you didn't." "Well, I'm saying it now." Across the room, I saw my father examining the medals on the shelf. His eyes paused over one in particular, the cyber defense citation for counteracting a foreign breach that had almost crippled 2 federal networks. "I read about that one," he said quietly. "Didn't realize at the time you were leading it." "I was," I answered. He didn't add more. He just nodded. It wasn't a parade. It wasn't a movie ending, but it was real, and that made it better. Later that evening, over coffee and my mother's pie, my father raised his glass in a quiet toast. To Colonel Everly Stone, he said, "Who proved that your worth isn't found in following someone else's path, but in walking your own." We all raised our glasses. I looked around that room and saw something I'd never seen growing up. Recognition. Not pity, not tolerance, but the kind of earned respect that no one could take back. And in that moment, I knew something important. The victory wasn't in them finally seeing me. It was in the fact that even if they hadn't, I still would have kept going. I thought I needed their approval, that someday if I worked hard enough, they'd finally see me. But the truth is, I didn't need their recognition to be real. I was already enough. Walking into that boardroom in uniform wasn't revenge. It was quiet clarity. I didn't need to explain who I was. My presence did that for me. They once told me I was wasting my potential, that I'd never become anything. And yet there I stood, leading the very project they'd built their careers on. That moment didn't heal everything. It didn't erase the past, but it did something better. It proved that I never needed to follow their path to create value. So if they underestimate you, let them. Keep building. Keep rising. And when the moment comes, show up fully, calmly. Because the strongest proof isn't what you say, it's who you've quietly become. Everly realized her worth didn't hinge on her family's approval. Standing tall in her uniform, she understood that her strength came from forging her own path, not proving them wrong. What do you think of Everly's journey? Have you ever had to prove your worth to those who doubted you? Drop your thoughts below and let's spark a conversation. Imagine pouring your heart and savings into making a home, only for your own family to demand triple the rent to fund your brother's unemployed dreams and his influencer wife's whims. This is Sadie's story, a tale of loyalty, betrayal, and breaking free. Hi, I'm Emily. Today I'm going to read you the story of Sadie, which is titled like this: My parents tripled my rent to support my unemployed brother and his pregnant blogger wife who live in their house for free. This is you helping your family. So, I moved out without telling my new address, leaving a note. Good luck. Well, let's go. I'm Sadie and I'm 30 years old. Right now, I'm sitting in what used to be my parents' apartment, but has been my home for the past 8 years. It's weird how things work out sometimes. When I graduated from college, I thought I had everything figured out. Full scholarship, degree in pharmaceutical sciences, job lined up at a decent company. My parents had this empty apartment just sitting there while they lived in their 2-story house across town. Sadie, you can live there, my mom had said back then, but you'll pay us $800 a month. $800. At first, I was kind of annoyed. Here I was, their daughter, who had worked part-time jobs since I was 16 because they taught me I needed to know the value of money, and they still wanted to charge me rent. Meanwhile, my brother Ethan, who's 2 years younger than me, had never worked a day in his teenage life. He just lived off whatever my parents gave him. But $800 was way cheaper than anything else in this neighborhood. So, I said yes. I got my job at the pharmaceutical company and moved in. Every month, like clockwork, I transfer the money to my mom's card. Never missed a payment. Not once in 8 years. The thing is, when I moved in here, this place was pretty basic. Old furniture, outdated appliances, nothing that felt like home. So I started fixing it up. I bought a new couch, a decent TV, replaced the ancient refrigerator, got new bedroom furniture. Every single purchase I ran by my mom first. Can I get a new coffee table? I'd ask. Sure, honey. Just make sure it matches, she'd say. I spent thousands of my own money making this place livable. I painted the walls, bought curtains, got nice dishes, even replaced the old washing machine when it broke down. All my money, all my choices, but always with their approval. The whole time I've been saving up. See, I know I can't live in a rental forever, even if it is cheap. I want my own place someday, a real home that's actually mine. So I put money aside every month, building up that down payment fund bit by bit. But there's always this reminder that it's not really my place. Every time I go to family dinner at my parents' house, they say stuff like, "So what's new in our apartment?" Not your apartment or the apartment. Our apartment. Like, I'm just some tenant they're doing a favor for. Ethan still lives at home, by the way. 28 years old and still in his childhood bedroom. He does odd jobs here and there. Nothing steady. My parents just let him coast along like they always have. 2 years ago, everything got more complicated. Ethan got married to this girl named Lauren. She's what you'd call an Instagram influencer, though not a very successful one. She films herself doing makeup tutorials and food posts, that sort of thing. She doesn't have a regular job either. So now there's Ethan, Lauren, and my parents all living in that house together. And let me tell you, family dinners became a whole different experience after that. The first time I came to dinner after they got married, Lauren had completely taken over. She was ordering everyone around, telling my mom how to set the table, making my dad wait to start eating because she needed to film the food first. "Everyone stop," she'd say, holding up her phone. "I need to get the lighting right for my story." We'd all sit there while she took like 20 photos of the same plate of spaghetti. My parents just went along with it, smiling and nodding like this was totally normal. I tried to be supportive at first. I really did. But then came the incident with the sandwich. I'd arrived at dinner early and saw some sandwiches on the counter. I was hungry, so I grabbed one and took a bite. Lauren came into the kitchen and saw me eating it. She completely lost it. "Are you kidding me right now?" she screamed. Those were for my video. I spent 2 hours making those look perfect. I can't post content with a bite taken out of it. I tried to apologize, but she kept going. She called me selfish and inconsiderate, said I didn't understand what it was like to be a content creator. By the end of it, I was so upset I left without eating dinner at all. I cried the whole drive home. After that, I started avoiding Lauren as much as possible during family gatherings. I'd be polite, but keep my distance. She'd spend the whole dinner talking about her follower count, her engagement rates, how she was going to be rich and famous soon when the right brands discovered her. I'd just nod and eat my food. I mean, I know how these things work. Maybe 1 in 1,000 influencers actually makes decent money. But I wasn't going to be the one to burst her bubble, especially not after the sandwich incident. The conversations at dinner became all about Lauren's career and Ethan's various get-rich-quick schemes. Meanwhile, I'd sit there thinking about my actual job, my actual responsibilities, my actual bills. But nobody ever asked about my work or my life. It was all Lauren all the time. I remember one particularly painful dinner where Lauren spent forever showing everyone her latest Instagram post. It was a picture of her breakfast, and she was explaining the strategy behind it. See, I use these hashtags because they're trending, she said, scrolling through her phone. And I posted at 9:15 in the morning because that's when my audience is most active. My dad was nodding along like she was giving a TED Talk. That's very smart, Lauren. Ethan was beaming with pride. My wife's got it all figured out. The worst part was watching my parents enable this. They'd give Ethan and Lauren money for groceries, pay for their car insurance, even bought Lauren a ring light for her videos. Meanwhile, I was paying them $800 a month and getting lectures about knowing the value of money. But I kept quiet. I kept paying my rent, kept saving money, kept showing up to family dinners even when I wanted to stay home. I told myself it was temporary, that eventually they would get real jobs and move out. 3 weeks ago, I was having a normal Saturday morning. I just finished my coffee and was about to start doing laundry when my mom showed up at my door. Actually, showed up isn't the right way to put it. She didn't knock or ring the bell. She just used her key and walked right in. For a second, I thought someone was breaking in. I was in the kitchen and heard the front door open. My heart started racing until I heard her voice. Sadie, are you home? I walked into the living room and there she was looking around the apartment like she was inspecting it. She had this expression on her face that I couldn't quite read. Kind of critical, like she was finding problems with everything she saw. Mom, you scared me. Why didn't you knock? She didn't answer my question. Instead, she kept looking around, checking out the furniture I bought, the way I'd arranged everything. It felt uncomfortable, like I was being judged. We need to talk, she said. Finally. Sit down. I offered her coffee, but she waved me off. No, I don't have time for that. This is serious. So we sat on my couch, the one I'd saved up for and bought myself, and she got straight to the point. Sadie, things are changing around here. Lauren's pregnant. I knew this already. They'd announced it at dinner 2 weeks earlier with this big, dramatic reveal. Lauren had cleared her throat and made this announcement like she was giving a speech. I wanted to officially announce that I'm pregnant, she'd said, while my parents applauded and my mom started crying happy tears. I'd congratulated them, of course. But even during that dinner, I could tell Lauren was already making plans. She talked about wanting to go on some kind of baby moon vacation before the baby came, about needing to redecorate what used to be my old bedroom, about getting a bigger car. My parents just nodded along to everything she said like they were ready to make it all happen. I know about the pregnancy. Mom, I was there when she announced it. Good. Then you understand that everything's different now. Lauren needs support during this time. She needs money for doctor visits, for baby stuff, for herself. I looked at my mom, confused. Shouldn't Ethan be supporting his pregnant wife? That's kind of how marriage works. My mom's face got this annoyed look. Ethan is still figuring things out. He's finding himself, trying different opportunities, and Lauren is going to be a big influencer someday. She's building something important. I wanted to laugh. Ethan had been finding himself for years. Every few months, he had some new plan. Cryptocurrency, online sales, multi-level marketing. Nothing worked because he never stuck with anything. Mom, what does this have to do with me? She looked me straight in the eye. Starting next month, your rent is going up. Instead of $800, you'll be paying $2,400. Lauren's pregnant and babies are expensive. $2,400. That was 3 times what I'd been paying and way more than market rate. Most apartments around here went for $1,500, maybe $1,800 for nice ones. Mom, that's crazy. That's more than apartments cost anywhere around here. This isn't just rent, she said. This is you helping your family, helping your brother. I felt my face getting hot. I'm not paying $2,400 a month. That's ridiculous. Then you need to move out. We can find other renters who will pay more than what you're paying now. Normal renters who understand that good apartments cost money. I sat there in silence for a minute, trying to process what was happening. My own mother was basically kicking me out unless I agreed to pay 3 times the rent to support my unemployed brother and his pregnant wife. Fine, I said. Finally, I'll move out. After she left, I sat on my couch for a while just thinking. Then I got on my laptop and started looking for apartments. I had enough saved up that I could afford first month's rent and a security deposit pretty much anywhere. The money I'd been saving for a house down payment would have to wait, but I could manage. By that evening, I'd found 3 places to look at. The next day was Sunday, so I called and set up appointments to see them. The second apartment I looked at was perfect. It was in the same neighborhood, actually closer to my work. It was empty, so there was no furniture or appliances, but that didn't matter since I'd bought everything in my current place anyway. The rent was $1,600 a month, which was double what I'd been paying my parents, but still way less than the $2,400 they wanted. And this time, it would actually be my place. My name on the lease, my apartment, my rules. I filled out the application right there and put down the security deposit. The landlord said I could move in by Wednesday if my application was approved. Tuesday morning, I got the call that I was approved. I took a personal day from work and started packing. Here's the thing about that apartment. Everything in it belonged to me. The couch, the TV, the refrigerator, the dining table, the bed, the dresser, the dishes, the coffee maker. Everything except this old wooden table that had been there when I moved in 8 years ago. So, I packed up everything I'd bought. I rented a small moving truck and loaded it all up. The only thing I left was that old table. And on it, I left a note that just said, "Good luck." I didn't tell my parents I was moving that day. I just sent my mom a text message. I moved out. Thanks for everything. She read it. I could see the little red receipt, but she didn't respond. For 2 days, my phone was quiet. I thought maybe that was it. Maybe they just let me go without any drama. I was unpacking in my new place, setting up my furniture, making it feel like home. Then on Friday, my phone started ringing constantly. My mom, my dad, Ethan, over and over again. I let them all go to voicemail at first. Finally, my mom called again and I answered, "Sadie, what the hell did you do?" "I moved out like you told me to." "You took everything. The apartment is completely empty." I stayed calm. I took my stuff. The stuff I bought with my own money. We already found a renter. We promised him a fully furnished apartment. "Then you probably should have checked with me first." She was yelling, "Now you bring that furniture back right now or I'm calling a lawyer." That made me laugh. "Go ahead, Mom. Call a lawyer. But you might want to think about whether you want to explain to them why you've been collecting rent from me for 8 years without any kind of lease agreement." I'm pretty sure the IRS would be interested in that conversation too. The line went dead quiet. "You're not our daughter anymore," she said finally. "If that's how you feel," I said, and hung up. After that phone call with my mom, things got worse before they got better. That same night, Ethan and Lauren started texting me. Long messages about how selfish I was. how I was abandoning my family when they needed me most. Lauren sent me voice messages calling me greedy and heartless. She said I was jealous of her pregnancy and her success as an influencer. Success. She had like 9,000 followers and made maybe $50 a month from sponsored posts. I didn't respond to any of it. Instead, I blocked all their numbers and blocked them on social media, Instagram, Facebook, everything. I was done with the drama. The next few weeks were actually peaceful. I settled into my new apartment, got used to my new routine. It felt amazing to come home and know that nobody was going to remind me it wasn't really my place. For the first time in 8 years, I felt like I actually had a home. Work was going well, too. My boss had been talking about promoting me to senior analyst, which would come with a decent raise. I was putting in extra hours, trying to prove I deserved it. About a month after I moved out, I ran into my cousin Chloe at the grocery store. Chloe's always been the family gossip, so I knew she'd have updates. She looked around like she was worried someone might overhear us. "Your mom told everyone you stole furniture from them." I laughed. Of course she did. What else is she saying? That you're ungrateful and selfish. But honestly, Sadie, everyone thinks what they did was wrong. Trying to make you pay for Ethan's baby, that's not right. It was nice to hear that not everyone in the family thought I was the villain in this story. "How are they doing anyway?" I asked. Chloe made a face. "Not great. They can't find anyone to rent the apartment for what they wanted. They've had to lower the price 2 times. And Lauren and your mom are constantly fighting." Fighting about what? Everything. Lauren wants to move into the apartment now that it's empty, but your parents won't let her because then they can't rent it out. She's mad because she thought they'd be getting all this money from you to help with the baby. I felt a little satisfaction hearing that their plan wasn't working out. What about Ethan? Still not working. Still talking about his big plans. Last I heard, he was trying to start some kind of podcast about cryptocurrency. Of course he was. 6 months passed. I got the promotion at work, which came with a 15% raise. I was saving money again, building back up my house fund. Life was good. Then one evening, I was leaving work and saw Ethan standing by my car. For a second, I thought about just walking past him, but he'd already seen me. "Sadie, wait. Please, can we go somewhere and talk? Maybe that coffee shop across the street." I didn't want to, but I was curious about what he had to say. We walked to the coffee shop in silence. I ordered a latte. He got nothing. "I can't afford coffee right now," he said when the barista asked what he wanted. We sat down at a corner table. Ethan looked terrible. His hair was messy, his clothes were wrinkled, and he had dark circles under his eyes. "Sadie, I need your help, Lauren, and I want to move out of Mom and Dad's house. We need our own place, especially with the baby. So, get jobs and move out. That's what normal adults do. It's not that simple. I have a baby now. I can't just work any job." I stared at him. "Ethan, you've never worked any job for more than 3 months. Ever. This isn't about the baby." His face got red. "That's not true. Name one job you've kept for longer than 3 months." He couldn't. We both knew it. "Look," he said, "I know I made mistakes in the past, but I'm trying to be better. I'm working on this podcast thing, and I think it could really take off. The cryptocurrency market is exploding right now. People want to learn about it." I wanted to laugh. There are already thousands of crypto podcasts. What makes yours special? "Well, I'm just starting out, but I have some really good ideas. Same old Ethan. Big dreams, no actual plan, no follow-through." "Why are you telling me this? What do you want from me?" "I need money to move out, just a loan." "I'll pay you back once the podcast starts making money." "How much money?" "Maybe $10,000. That would cover first month's rent, security deposit, some furniture, $10,000 for a loan he'd never pay back to fund another one of his get-rich-quick schemes." "No, Sadie, please. You're my sister. Lauren is miserable living with Mom and Dad. They fight all the time. The baby needs a stable home." "Then get a job, Ethan. Get a real job with a steady paycheck and move out like everyone else." He started getting loud. "You make good money. You got that promotion. You could help us if you wanted to." People in the coffee shop were starting to stare. I stood up. I'm leaving. Don't contact me again. Sadie, wait. But I was already walking out. He didn't follow me. That night, I heard from Chloe again. She called to tell me what had happened after I left. Ethan came home and told everyone you refused to help him. Your mom is furious. She's telling everyone you're heartless. What else is new? But Sadie, you should know. Things are getting really bad over there. Lauren and your mom had a huge fight yesterday. Lauren threw a plate at the wall and threatened to take the baby and leave. That sounds like their problem, not mine. I know, but I thought you should know. Ethan looked really desperate when I saw him today. After we hung up, I felt a little bad. Not bad enough to give Ethan money, but bad enough to wonder if I was doing the right thing. Then I remembered all the years of watching him coast through life while I worked my ass off. No, I wasn't responsible for fixing Ethan's life. He was 30 years old with a wife and a baby. It was time for him to grow up. That was a year ago. After I refused to give Ethan money, he tried different things to make money fast. The cryptocurrency podcast lasted 6 weeks. Then he tried day trading with my parents' money and lost most of it. After that, multi-level marketing, selling protein shakes that lasted 2 months. Lauren is still doing Instagram, but she's not getting the success she expected. Having a baby makes it harder to create content consistently. She's constantly complaining that she doesn't have time to film or that the baby cries during videos. The fighting got so bad that my dad installed a lock on their bedroom door. Chloe told me Lauren threw a tantrum last month because my mom wouldn't babysit while she went to an influencer meetup. It's not my job to watch your kid. My mom said, "You live here for free. Figure it out." The irony wasn't lost on me. My mom, who demanded I pay rent for their empty apartment, was now dealing with 3 freeloaders in her house. They still can't rent out the apartment. After lowering the price multiple times, they found someone willing to pay $1,200 a month, but only furnished. Since I took all the furniture, my parents had to buy cheap stuff to make it rentable. They're barely breaking even. Meanwhile, my life has been great. The promotion came with responsibilities I actually enjoy. I'm working on interesting research projects, and my boss hinted at another promotion next year. I've been saving aggressively and looking at houses. With my new salary and savings, I should be able to put down a decent down payment by spring. Having my own house feels achievable now. I started dating someone too. James is an engineer. We met at a work conference, and he's been supportive about my family situation. He can't believe how they treated me. "You're the responsible one," he said. "They should be proud of you, not trying to use you as their personal ATM. It's nice being with someone who sees things clearly." A few weeks ago, Chloe called with family drama. "Your brother and Lauren had a huge fight." She said, "Lauren wants to move into your old apartment since your parents can't find a good tenant. But your parents said no because they need the rental income. Even $1,200 a month. Even that money's tight now. Your dad's talking about getting a part-time job. My dad is 68. The fact that he's considering working again because he's supporting 3 adults and a baby who won't get jobs is sad." What did Lauren say? She said if they don't let her move into the apartment, she's taking the baby and leaving Ethan. And go where? She doesn't have money. That's what your mom asked. Lauren said she'd figure it out. Maybe move in with her sister. I almost felt bad for Ethan. Almost. But then I remembered he's 30 and has never taken responsibility for anything. Oh, and Sadie. Chloe added, "Your mom asked if I had your new address." What did you tell her? That I didn't know it, but she's been asking around. I think she might contact you. Let her try. I'm not interested. Chloe was right. A few days later, my mom showed up at my work. I was leaving the building when I saw her by the entrance. I considered going back inside, but she'd seen me. "Sadie, we need to talk. Just 5 minutes." I looked at her. She looked older, more tired. Fine. 5 minutes. We walked to a bench. She sat down. I stayed standing. "Sadie, I know things got heated, but you're still my daughter." Funny because last time we talked, you said I wasn't. I was angry. I didn't mean it. What do you want, Mom? I want my family back together. This fighting isn't good for anyone. Then maybe talk to Ethan about getting a job instead of asking me to fund his lifestyle. He's trying, Sadie. It's just hard for him. It's hard for everyone. The difference is most people don't have parents enabling them for 30 years. She was quiet. We miss you at family dinners. No, you don't. You miss having someone to pay rent and listen to Lauren talk about followers. That's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time you asked about my job, my life, my goals? When's the last time you were proud of something I accomplished? She couldn't answer. I got promoted twice this year, I continued. I'm buying a house. I'm happy. And none of you have shown interest because you're too busy with Ethan's latest crisis. We're proud of you, Sadie. We've always been proud. You have a funny way of showing it. I started walking toward my car. Sadie, wait. She called. I turned around. Mom, when Ethan gets a real job and starts acting like an adult, maybe we can talk. Until then, I'm done being the family ATM. That was 3 weeks ago. I haven't heard from any of them since. I know some people might think I'm being too harsh, that I should help my nephew, that family is family, that I should forgive and forget. But here's the thing. I spent 8 years being the responsible one while watching my parents enable Ethan's irresponsibility. I spent 8 years paying rent while he lived for free. I spent 8 years being reminded that nothing was really mine while he was handed everything. I'm done with that dynamic. I have my own life now, my own goals, my own future to think about. If that makes me selfish, then I guess I'm selfish. Sadie realized that enabling her family's irresponsibility wasn't love. It was a trap. By choosing her own path, she learned that true strength lies in setting boundaries, even when it means standing alone. What would you do in Sadie's shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to cut ties to protect your peace? Let's get this conversation going. When my sister Sarah sneered, "Victoria's too poor for my crowd," I stood frozen, her words cutting deeper than I'd ever imagined. Little did she know I was secretly building a $910 million empire right under her nose. I remember that moment so clearly. It feels like I can still hear Sarah's voice echoing in the living room. It was just 3 days before Thanksgiving. I arrived at my sister's house in Chicago with my suitcase in hand, following my parents' request not to spend the holiday by myself. The wheels of my suitcase squeaked against the polished hardwood floors, making it impossible to sneak in quietly. I tried to move carefully, but it didn't matter. Sarah's voice rang out effortlessly from the other room. "She won't fit in, Mom. Victoria's just too poor for my group." The way she said it so casually, almost like she was bored, hurt more than the actual words themselves. I froze in the doorway, my breath caught in my chest. For a second, I wondered if she even realized I could hear her, but she did. She glanced over her shoulder at me, her face perfectly made up and calm, not showing any regret or embarrassment. There was an awkward pause, then she added, "It's not that I hate her. She just isn't a good match." I managed a tiny, shaky laugh because laughing was the only way to keep my pride from falling apart. There's something about hearing your sister dismiss you so easily that stings in a way you never expected. Sarah has always been the shining star of our family. In every photo, she's the one you notice first. At every family party, she's the one making everyone laugh with her big smile and even bigger personality. Our parents loved us both, but Sarah always chased the spotlight, and people rewarded her for it. She won dance competitions, entered beauty pageants, and even started modeling when she was young. She always thrived in social settings while I was happier in the background, reading a book or figuring out a puzzle. People called me the quiet one, the smart one, while Sarah loved being the center of attention. Her life glittered with likes, hashtags, and designer clothes, while mine was full of simple, private joys. Over time, Sarah's love for flashy living only grew, especially with the endless audience of social media. She was great at her job in PR. Not because she studied branding, but because she was her brand, glamorous, magnetic, always in the spotlight. I was fine living outside of that world. After college, I worked in finance, moving through different jobs and learning about stocks and investments. Sarah never showed any interest in what I did or in me. So, when our parents announced they'd finally be taking their dream Caribbean cruise for Thanksgiving, I didn't think much of it. They had been planning it forever. But then my mom called, her voice gentle and worried, saying she didn't want me to be alone for the holiday. "You and Sarah should spend it together," she said, as if it was the easiest solution in the world. At first, I wanted to say no. I already knew how Sarah felt about having her awkward plain sister around, but my mom insisted, saying, "You're both adults. You live in the same city. Families should be together for special days." I sighed and said I'd think about it. Before I could even talk to Sarah, she texted me, "Mom is giving me no choice. You can come if you want. I'm having some friends over for dinner. Dress nicely." That was it. No emoji, no warmth, just a command. Still, I convinced myself that maybe once we were together, things would feel different. Maybe we'd laugh about old times. Maybe my being there wouldn't bother her. That hope lasted right up until I walked into her house and heard her talking about me. After overhearing her blunt conversation with our mom, I quietly went upstairs to the guest room, trying not to let my disappointment show. I closed the door behind me and sat on the edge of the guest bed, Sarah's words looping through my mind. "She's too poor for my circle." At first, I felt numb with disbelief, a kind of empty shock buzzing in my chest. But that quickly faded, replaced by a deep sting of hurt and an urge to run. For a few seconds, I honestly considered grabbing my bag, calling a cab, and going home. Maybe I could just ignore my mom's wishes and skip this holiday altogether. But a little bit of stubbornness kept me in place. Why should I let Sarah's shallow opinions chase me away? If she wanted to see me as some stereotype, the poor sister in hand-me-downs, maybe I'd just play along for now. It almost amused me to imagine how she might react if she ever found out the truth. I caught sight of myself in the silver-framed mirror above the dresser. My outfit was plain, a navy blouse and jeans, comfortable and ordinary. My hair was pulled back simply, and my makeup was barely there. I might have been quiet, but that didn't mean I was weak, and it certainly didn't mean I was poor. I took a slow, steady breath and decided I'd stay. Not for Sarah, but for Mom and Dad and the little surprises life sometimes brings. Just then, my phone buzzed with a notification, a reminder that the latest market report was about to drop. Usually, this was the highlight of my day, the moment I dive into data, spot trends, and make a few strategic trades. Sarah never had any idea that while she was out showing off the latest designer handbag, I was quietly growing my investments behind the scenes. In her eyes, I was just another dull office worker. If she only knew that over the last 9 years, I'd built my original savings into a $910 million portfolio. It hadn't happened overnight. I started with a small sum from my first job, carefully saving every month, reading financial news after work, and learning the market's ups and downs while Sarah was off at exclusive parties. My weekends were filled with research, not shopping. I made smart bets on new markets, found promising startups, and always put my gains back to work. I never needed anyone's applause or attention. The numbers spoke for themselves, and I liked keeping my success private. My growing wealth was a secret garden, a peaceful place far away from the judgment and drama Sarah thrived on. That night, I tried to sleep in the plush guest bed. The house was so quiet, except for the faint hum of city traffic outside. Everything around me screamed luxury, from the silk headboard to the gleaming chandelier in the hall. Still, the whole place felt more like a movie set than a real home, built to impress guests and followers instead of offering comfort. I wondered how much time and money Sarah spent just trying to keep up appearances. My thoughts wandered to the things I'd quietly done over the years: the scholarships for kids who needed them, the water wells in far-off villages, the small-town library I helped build because there wasn't a single bookstore for miles. Sarah had never asked about any of this, and I never offered. Maybe I was afraid she'd make fun of me. Or maybe I just liked keeping my good deeds private, letting them speak for themselves. Eventually, I drifted off to sleep, feeling unsettled but a little more confident than before. A new idea popped into my head before I finally dozed off. If Sarah and her friends ever discovered the real story behind my boring life, what would they do? The thought made me nervous, but also brought a tiny secret smile to my lips. Thanksgiving morning arrived with a whirlwind of activity. Sarah's house buzzed with energy. Caterers moved around the kitchen, setting out huge bouquets of fresh flowers across the granite counters. 4 servers in crisp shirts carried trays of sparkling cider and wine, while a pianist by the window tuned her instrument, sunlight dancing across the keys. It felt like walking into a magazine photo shoot. Every detail was polished and perfect. I slipped downstairs, hoping to go unnoticed. The air smelled of fresh flowers and expensive perfume, a scent that screamed luxury. As the party prep continued, I quietly offered to help, but Sarah just waved me off with barely a glance. "Just mingle or something," she said, sounding both distracted and a little dismissive. She was dressed in a soft autumnal dress that matched the fancy table settings, her hair curled into perfect waves, her makeup flawless as always. As her friends began to arrive, the atmosphere filled with perfume, laughter, and the low hum of conversation. Emily walked in wearing a sharp blazer. Lauren floated by in a sweater dress, and a few men strolled in, relaxed in tailored jackets. Their talk quickly jumped from hedge funds to new restaurants, from exclusive clubs to stories about celebrity after-parties. They tossed out famous names like party favors, each trying to sound more impressive than the last. I stood quietly off to the side listening, knowing that, ironically, I probably knew more about real finance than all of them combined. Eventually, one of Sarah's friends, Jessica, a woman I recognized from Instagram, approached me. She wore a gleaming designer watch and offered a polished smile. "And you are?" she asked with that friendly but distant tone people use when trying to figure out your place in their world. "I'm Victoria," I replied, shaking her hand. "Sarah's sister." Her eyebrows rose in surprise. "Oh, I think I've heard a little about you. Finance, right?" I nodded. "Yes, I work in finance." But before I could say more, Sarah swept over, wrapping an arm around Jessica's shoulders. "Victoria just dabbles," Sarah said, her words thick with condescension. "She's low-key." A wave of polite laughter went around the group. My face got warm, not from embarrassment but annoyance. I decided to stay silent. Let them believe whatever Sarah wanted. I had no interest in proving anything. I was here for my parents, nothing else. The dinner itself was almost too perfect. Every plate was a work of art. Roasted turkey with glossy gravy, baskets of fresh rolls, and delicate pies in warm Thanksgiving colors. The pianist from earlier had been replaced by a jazz trio out on the patio, their music floating through the open doors along with the sound of clinking glasses and soft laughter. Sarah sat at the head of the table, making sure everything ran smoothly, adjusting decorations and steering every conversation so nothing ever got too personal. I found myself squeezed between 3 men who only seemed interested in their next ski trip, not in making any real conversation. Sarah checked on me from across the table now and then, making sure I was playing my role as the quiet, invisible sister. She didn't have to worry. I had no plans to outshine her. I just sat back listening as Emily told a story about a resort in Aspen, and Jessica went on about some must-see designer pop-up event. Nobody asked about my Thanksgiving traditions or how I felt about our parents being away. It was as if I wasn't there at all, which for now was perfectly fine. I studied the room with a sense of distant curiosity, the sparkling glasses, shining silverware, the cascade of roses and chrysanthemums across the center of the table. Sarah had spared no expense, and the effect was truly beautiful. But beneath all the style, I sensed a layer of insecurity in Sarah and in her friends too. Their constant need to name drop and show off felt like they were desperate to prove they belonged in this shiny world. Sipping my wine, I watched Sarah move effortlessly from one group to the next. The perfect hostess. She really did shine in moments like these. I couldn't help but remember when we were kids, searching for Easter eggs in our grandparents' backyard. Sarah always found the most eggs, shrieking with excitement while I just smiled, happy to be there. Some things never really change, even if everything else does. As dinner wound down, Sarah's guests wandered into the living room, drawn by trays of tiny pastries and colorful treats. The conversation grew even louder, and the stories became even more outrageous. Someone tried to talk about hedge funds, but didn't know what they were saying. I hid a small smile behind my glass, content to remain a quiet observer. Everyone at the table nodded along as if they truly understood the complicated financial talk, though I could tell most of it went over their heads. I bit my lip to keep from smiling. Jessica turned to me again, her curiosity barely hidden. "So, Victoria, are you planning any trips? We're thinking about a group getaway to Miami this winter." Her question had a slightly competitive edge. I shrank back a little, not wanting to share too much. "I've been traveling here and there. A few months ago, I went to Peru to visit a project I helped support in the Andes," I answered. Her eyebrows drew together. "A project you helped fund." Before I could explain, Sarah jumped in with a fake laugh. "Oh, Victoria's always giving money to something, whether it's some neighborhood fundraiser or a charity overseas. She's obsessed with that stuff." She said it in a way that made my work sound silly, like a kid's hobby instead of something meaningful. Jessica giggled politely, but I caught a glimmer of interest in her eyes. I tucked that away, wondering if she'd ever ask me about it privately. Finally, dinner ended, and Sarah's friends left, blowing kisses and promising to meet again soon. The house grew quiet, except for the staff clearing dishes and tidying up. Sarah turned to me with her arms folded. "Thanks for behaving," she said, half joking, half serious. "Mom will be happy we didn't strangle each other." I noticed she wouldn't quite look me in the eye. I took a breath. The sting of her earlier words still echoed in my mind. "Why did you say I was too poor for your friends?" I asked softly, not looking for a fight, just closure. She let out an exaggerated sigh. "Because it's true, Victoria. My friends and I have a certain lifestyle. Luxury vacations, designer clothes, and exclusive events. You just can't keep up. That's all I meant." Her tone was blunt, but there was something uneasy in her expression. I studied her face, searching for even a flicker of regret, but saw none. "All right," I said finally. "Don't worry about it." She hesitated, biting her lip. "Seriously, though, how do you even manage your financial salary? You don't ask Mom and Dad for money, do you?" I just shook my head, smiling slightly. "I manage," I replied, letting her wonder. I could have told her everything, but what would be the point? I spent one more night just to honor my parents' wish for us to be together for Thanksgiving. But the next morning, I left early, turning down Sarah's lukewarm offer of a chauffeur ride. My car, a well-cared-for older model, was waiting outside. As I packed my things, Sarah stood on the porch wrapped in a silky robe, holding her fancy latte, looking like a picture from her own Instagram feed. For a brief moment, I felt a pang of sadness. No matter how different we were, she was still my sister, someone I had grown up with and loved. But in that instant, it felt like we were living on completely separate planets. The drive home was quiet and thoughtful. I replayed the events of dinner in my mind. The subtle digs, the laughter, the careless comments. The line that hurt most was, "She won't fit in." Not because it wasn't true, but because of the idea behind it that I should want to fit into their world. The truth was, I didn't. My life was rich in ways Sarah couldn't even imagine. Ironically, I probably made more money than anyone at her table. I promised myself to keep my secret safe. If people ever found out the truth about my life, it would be because I chose to share it, not because I wanted their approval. Back in my apartment, a spacious, sunlit loft in a peaceful part of Chicago, I finally felt at ease. I dropped my suitcase and relaxed in my favorite chair, surrounded by simple but beautiful furniture that I'd chosen for comfort, not for show. A message pinged on my phone, reminding me about a scholarship deadline. That was my real world, always working on projects that could make a difference for someone else. I opened my laptop and checked my investments. Some of the stocks I'd been watching had soared, and my portfolio looked better than ever. That growth meant more scholarships, more libraries, and more opportunities for people who needed them. My life didn't look flashy from the outside, but it was full of meaning and purpose. Later that night, I found some homemade chili in my fridge and warmed it up on the stove. I laughed a little, imagining Sarah's reaction if she saw my humble dinner. But I wouldn't trade my quiet, genuine life for anything, not even all the glitter and glamour in Sarah's world. The comfort of my own home and knowing my investments were doing well gave me peace. Sarah's fancy parties never could. I wouldn't trade my quiet life for anything. A few weeks passed with little contact between us. I stayed busy with work, new investments, and planning a community center. Sarah only sent the occasional quick text about how busy she was. Then one night, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Is this Victoria S. from the article?" With a link, curious, I opened it. There it was. An article about me titled, "The Silent Titan. Meet Victoria S." It described my investing success and philanthropy, even showing a photo from a charity event. Suddenly, my secret wasn't so secret anymore. It didn't take long for Sarah to find out. Her friend Emily saw the article and brought it up at lunch. Sarah was caught off guard and couldn't deny it. Soon after, Sarah called me upset. "You never told me any of this," she said angrily. "Do you know how embarrassed I was? Everyone thought you were just some low-level office worker." I stayed calm. "I never tried to hide, Sarah. I just don't like showing off. My life isn't about impressing people." She was quiet, sounding hurt. "You could have told me. I just didn't expect it." For a moment, we both understood. We lived in different worlds, and that was okay. I realized that beneath Sarah's anger was probably a feeling of betrayal. "Look," I said quietly. "I wasn't hiding anything. I just lived my life differently. I'm not going to post my bank statements or brag about my donations online. That's not who I am, Sarah." For a long moment, there was only silence. I heard a quiet sniffle on the line. Finally, in a shaky voice, she asked, "So, what happens now?" We ended up talking for nearly an hour. Her anger slowly faded, replaced first by confusion, then a little bit of understanding. I told her some of my story, how I got into investing after college, took risks in new markets, and put every extra dollar back into my work. I told her about the charity projects I'd started, the causes I loved, and how keeping them private felt like freedom to me. She listened, sometimes interrupting in disbelief. "You own an island? Are you funding water projects in Africa? You built a library in Guatemala?" Each question sounded more shocked than the last. I explained. I never felt the need to show off, changing lives and helping others. That was my real reward. By the end, Sarah sounded different. "I guess I never really knew you, Victoria," she said, her voice soft. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was closer than she'd ever come. I could still hear a bit of jealousy, though. She thanked me for talking and said, "We should see each other soon." When I hung up, I felt a weird mix of relief and sadness. The next days were strange. Our dad called from the cruise, worried. Sarah said something about an article about you being a millionaire. He whispered as if it were a big secret. I reassured him that, yes, I was comfortable and no, it wasn't anything shady. Mom asked, "Why didn't you tell us?" Sounding more worried than upset. I explained my choices, and they seemed to accept it even if they didn't understand. Sarah stayed distant. Her texts were formal now, not rude, but stiff. I could tell she was unsure of how to act around me. The story about me seemed to be going around in her social circle with vague posts about the sister with the secret, but I ignored it. I had nothing to prove. One day, I was near Sarah's favorite cafe and decided to stop by. It was a stylish spot full of people snapping photos for social media. I spotted Sarah at a table outside, her phone perfectly positioned for a selfie in the sunlight. She saw me and waved, looking a bit nervous. "Mind if I join you?" I asked, sliding into a chair. She put her phone down, still tense. We made small talk about work, her travels, and city life. Then, carefully, she said, I'm sorry I called you poor. That was harsh. Thank you, I replied simply. It was rare for Sarah to admit she was wrong. I sipped my coffee as she glanced around, clearly wanting to say more. Finally, she spoke. That article, people are still talking about it. You're basically a star to those finance people. I shrugged. I'm not interested in fame, Sarah. I just do what I do. She looked down at her designer sleeve, fidgeting, finally quiet. I never knew you could be wealthy without showing it off, Sarah admitted quietly, sounding unsure for once. I shook my head. No, Sarah. We just value different things. That's all. For a moment, I saw the old sister I grew up with, the one who used to dream big and share Thanksgiving leftovers with me. We talked a bit more, careful but honest, and she invited me to a small gathering, asking if I'd share about my charity work. I agreed to think about it. It felt like a small step forward. A week later, I got a thank you email from a scholarship student and forwarded it to Sarah, writing, "This is why I do what I do." She replied, "Wow, this is incredible, Victoria. Thanks for sharing." That weekend, we met for lunch. Just two sisters talking honestly. No cameras, no show. For the first time in a while, it felt like we were connecting again. We're still different, but now there's respect between us. And that's enough for me. I still drive my simple, reliable car. I still check my investment charts while I sip my morning coffee and choose to support causes that matter to me. The only real difference now is that Sarah knows, our parents know, and even some of her friends know. Even with more people aware of my success, my life feels the same. Private, meaningful, and fulfilling. When I remember that Thanksgiving morning and Sarah calling me too poor, I actually feel a mix of nostalgia and a little bit of humor. In that painful moment, I found my own real self-worth. Wealth, I've learned, isn't about fancy clothes or being invited to exclusive parties. It's about having the ability to make a difference, to help others, and to be truly comfortable with yourself, even when no one is watching. So, I keep living my quiet life, confident that true luxury isn't about showing off. It's about living in a way that matters, even if no one's watching, but maybe, just maybe, inspiring someone along the way. That painful Thanksgiving taught me a vital lesson. True wealth isn't in flashy displays or social approval, but in the quiet power of living authentically, making a difference, and staying true to who you are, no matter what others think. What's your take on Victoria's journey? Have you ever faced a moment that redefined your sense of worth? Drop your thoughts below. I'd love to hear your stories and spark a conversation.